G'day legends, UFC Saudi Arabia just wrapped up, so let's talk about it. Firstly, how was the first ever event in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Look, I'm happy for Dana White that they're giving you a ton of money. Well done, man, but geez, it hurts just to see how clearly the UFC can be bought for the right amount of money. It really makes me worry for what is going to happen to the UFC when Dana White actually leaves and the boardroom takes over. Like, we have seen what has happened to companies all over the world when the boardroom takes over. We've seen it happen to Call of Duty in the gaming industry, or the entire gaming industry. We've happened to see it in all of cinema and entertainment, right? All of Disney, Marvel, Star Wars. Look at that new Ghostbusters movie. Like, everything the boardroom touches, you know, they just gotta slap a rainbow sticker onto it, if you know what I mean. They must be like leprechauns in there. Why am I bringing this up? Why the hell am I bringing this up when we're meant to be talking about UFC Saudi Arabia? I'll tell you what. A few years ago, the UFC wanted to come to my rainbow state here in Australia, in Victoria. You might have heard about Victoria, Australia during, I don't know, the year 2020, 2021, even pushed into 2022 a little bit. Our California-esque government told the UFC, when the UFC wanted to come here back in the day, that we're so progressive that we've already gotten the F1 to get rid of the grid girls, and we want you to get rid of the ring girls. And Dana White told my government to go suck on a chick's sausage, if you know what I'm saying. A chick's sausage. They told my government to go and suck on a chick's sausage, because that would be language my government would understand. He said that the ring girls provide a level of entertainment and that he provides them with steady jobs and they build entire careers off of this, and it's part of the core thing that is the UFC's product. And back in those days, this was around 2018, 2017, I was like, what a legend. I love this guy, I love this sport, I'm gonna get even more involved in it. This is the kind of culture that I wanna be around. And it just turns out that my state's glitter-lined pockets weren't quite deep enough. Because I noticed that last night's event, it was missing some flavor. It was missing some seasoning, you know? It was just missing a little bit of something. And it turns out that all the UFC really needs to blow their sails in one direction or another is deep enough pockets, and the Kingdom certainly has that. How was the event overall? It was like the boxing over there. You know, it was big production, big crowd, big lights, big pillars of screens all over the place. It was big, but it just felt empty. It felt dead, man. The crowd just isn't as into it. Give me 3 Paris events. Give me 3 events in Paris 3 times a year. And then go to the UK, go all over the UK 3 times a year. And then go to Ireland twice, like Bellator and Cage Warriors. And then come down to Perth and go to Brisbane twice a year. Go to Miami a couple of times a year. Go to the South of America a few times a year. I want to hear a crowd, man. I want to hear them chanting in the stands. I need some energy. I'm so happy that Dana White got a big payday. You know, I'm sure the fighters are going to get a sprinkling of that. But when I'm sitting down and watching the event, it's wild to me how much the crowd does make a difference. And I don't mind it so much when we're at the Apex, because it does feel like a smaller event. I've said this many times on this channel. When we're at the UFC Apex, I feel like we are watching the B leagues. I feel like we're watching Contender Series Episode 2, the next step up. I'm sitting there knowing that I'm watching college football or college basketball, and I'm watching the next up-and-coming contenders. Who is going to be on the fight nights? Who is going to be on the pay-per-views? Who are the names that I'm looking out for? That's what it feels like in the Apex, and the Apex feels right for that sort of event. But for this event that's sold to us to be so big, it just feels kind of dead. So if we're going to do it in front of a crowd, let's do it in front of a real crowd. Crowds that actually want the UFC there. Obviously, that is never going to happen. This is a business. It's one of those things that I talk about a lot. This is a business, and the UFC got paid. Good on them. But it was a very Brazilian-esque crowd. It just felt a little bit empty. How was the event overall? It was fun. It was good fun. How did I go on my picks? I got bloody robbed, mate. I got robbed. I made 2 separate parlays. One of them for the prelims, one of them for the main card. Jared Gordon got robbed, and I got robbed as well. This was the parlay that we did. Absolutely shameful. What is going on with Jared Gordon's career? Imagine if he has actually won every single one of the decisions that he is meant to have won. We would be talking about like Jared Gordon versus, I don't know, Dan Hooker or something. He would have a completely different career. This is so wild to see what happens when the judges affect your fights. I feel like Jared Gordon is on the edge of having a Jorge Masvidal moment. You know that great myth and lie that Jorge said when he went into the forest and had some peyote and God told him that he just had to start knocking people out and baptizing them? And he got like 3 or 4 good knockouts and then went back to the same old Masvidal we know and love. I think Gordon's about to have one of those moments. Go into the forest with Yuri Prohaska, stay away from Blachowicz, but go in there with Yuri, do some peyote, get real samurai about it, come back and stop letting the judges decide your fights, Gordon. The second robbery that I had to sit through and endure was goddamn Gastelum coming in as a bloody heavyweight, man, and he used that heavyweight to wrestle his way to a win, okay? He wrestled money out of my pocket. I was robbed last night, or robbed yesterday morning, by a fat, tubby lard ball, all right? Yesterday morning at 5 a.m., a poor, innocent YouTuber was held down and brutally ground and pounded by a fat loser named Kelvin Gastelum. So, I still love you, Kelvin, but I cannot admit that I am not annoyed by that. Anyway, moving on. And then Alexander Volkov was the smarter fighter, like I said he would be. Not in the way that I said he would be, but he was the smarter fighter, and his hair looked great throughout the entire fight. Whittaker's a GOAT. Literally, Robert Whittaker is going to go down as one of the GOATs, one of the top 5 of all time. And I just want to wrap up this video about UFC Saudi Arabia with this. Robert Whittaker now has a couple of wins. He's got Paulo Costa plus someone who was sold to us as a raging contender. He would have done the same thing to Chimaev. There is no doubt about that in my mind now. But Robert Whittaker has now got himself a couple of wins. Sean Strickland has now got himself a win, right? And just coming off a loss in a split decision to a title fight. Israel Adesanya has done absolutely nothing but sit on the sidelines, and his record is still, 2 wins, 3 losses out of his last 5. Fix UFC Perth immediately. This is how UFC Perth should look. Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland in the main event for the title fight. Sean Strickland can chuck his Akubra hat back on. The Aussies love him. He is as good as a homegrown Aussie as he can be. So we're giving him his A card, and he is going to be our Aussie representative as he goes in there. Plus, the South Africa is going to be playing a rugby game in Australia that week. So there's going to be a bunch of South African fans here anyway. And Dricus is clearly already down to fight in Australia. So, Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland for the main event as a co-main event. 5 rounds, number 1 contender shot. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 3, the rematch. The rubber match, because Robert Whittaker was robbed in his second fight against Israel Adesanya, and it's time to fix it here in Perth at UFC 305. Izzy's already signed up to the fight. Robert didn't take a scratch last night. Fix it. And then there's the rest of the card. It would be bloody beautiful. That is a perfect UFC 305 that can piggyback off what we saw last night at UFC Saudi Arabia and what we recently saw as well with Sean Strickland. That is it. Let me know down in the comments, how did you go with UFC Saudi Arabia? Did you enjoy it? What were your takeaways? Did you even notice that the ring girls weren't there? Does it really matter all that much? Put it down there in the comments. That's it for this one. I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.